Orange Gum. You are here with Wendy T and Hope Skibitsky, and today we have a special guest, Dustin Hughes.
Hi,
Hey.
Hello,
Dustin.
everyone. Hello, hello.
Welcome back, everybody. It's been like a whole month,
It
and
has been. We slowed
our,
the we slowed the rate.
that's right, we're deep diving into April, which is like month of the military child. And since we are prodigies of military families, there was some kind of like random statistic of like pick a number of people served because pick a number of people have served in their families. And so we thought, and also our other teammates here have raised humans. In that, Hope has have had a child who is currently serving. I know
Hey.
all y'all have heard random stories about her favorite human on the planet who
Yes.
serves. And so we got to have a couple of Garrett updates this week. I love his face.
He just sent me a message this morning that they ported, and he's pretty excited about the port. So
Aw, Dustin served, and Dustin, you're beautiful, beautiful. I mean, you really like up leveled in your marriage, right? Your beautiful, beautiful wife. She serves, and you guys are raising tiny humans. How do you even live? Can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yes, definitely. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. Mill to mill spouse. My wife is OR nurse in the military. She was a civilian nurse for a little while. I don't come from a military family. I had an uncle and some cousins and stuff, but my children, I have two kids, and I'm very fortunate to have them, experience all things military life. I have a son. He's 8. He just turned 8, Aiden, and then a daughter who is 2.5, and she actually runs our household.
oh, you have
I
little
Ivy,
little.
so 100%. So there's fingerprints and toys and stuff all over the house, but I don't know that there's any right answer as to how you raise a family in this military life. I think it's kind of like a sliding scale some days. You try your best and try to have a plan going into the day, and I think that's worked pretty well and a lot of grace. I think that's
Yeah,
probably a
Break,
portion.
break. If your uncle and other people served, like that is military family. I am Auntie Wendy, and I am definitely family. So
that's right. I'm Auntie Hope to a lot of folks. Plus, in the Polynesian culture, we call everybody auntie, whether
that's
they're
right.
family or not. So,
We're like 800 kids out there.
I will tell you, I did not have the world's best example of how to be a parent, right? No if ands or buts about it. But so I was a lot of afraid of how do you be a parent? More specifically, can you be a parent and serve? What do you do? So, I mean, we stumbled our way through a lot of that. It was a learning experience, and not all of it was like book worthy. Like,
Read my mind. We're gonna go to jail, Hope.
and so I'll tell you, I got it wrong a lot. I got it wrong a lot because how do you know, especially if you don't have a good example of what right looks like, Dustin? I mean, don't tell me you're the world's perfect parent, right? Are you okay, you're with me.
Absolutely not. Yep. Nope. Not even a little bit. I think it's
Yeah.
What? I can't believe that to be true. Your wife looks pretty perfect to me.
she's amazing. She's amazing. So she's my rock. I do think, while I wasn't raised as a military child myself, I do think my mom and my stepdad and then my dad, I mean, I had loving parents that gave me a great foundation and were disciplined and regimented and held me accountable when they needed to. And I think all those things translate to where I am in the military and how I raise my kids. So very fortunate.
Yeah, that's good. I will tell you, there's a lot of times when you're running behind, you got off of work late, you forget to pick the kid up at school, you go pick them up, and then it's dinner out of a box from the microwave. I mean, I would like to think I was the Betty homemaker, all that. I today still don't cook. If it weren't for Justin, I wouldn't live. Um, so
Wait. No, no, no. There are ghetto nachos
that's
always. Like
true. That's
a can of Rotel, and like, I mean, magic happened at your house. I have been there.
We do a lot of like eat right out of the box can or package when I'm cooking. There's a show that was on Food Network years ago called Semi Homemade. I'm like, oh, this girl is speaking my language. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just the easy button. I feel like you get up early to try to get the kids ready for school or for daycare, and then
Hold
you're
on, hold
like
on.
pop some toast.
What does get up early mean?
So my schedule might look a little weirder than others. I'm a defender by trade, so I'm a security forces member by trade. I get up at 2:45. So I try to go to bed really early, and that just kind of works for our family, just to cram everything in. There's not enough hours in the day. So I get up at 2:45. I usually check emails and kind of like start a pot of coffee and just have some quiet time in the morning until like 4. And then I go to the gym here on base until roughly 5 or 5:30, just depending on what the morning looks like at work. And then 5 or 5:30, I get home and start to get my son up and the daughter up, and we try to give her a little bit more time because she always asks for like 5 more minutes, but there's never enough 5 more minutes in the day.
Mhm.
And then I think by like 6:30, 6:45, we're like rushing out the door and panicking for no reason, a little bit of sweat and stuff, and just trying to get them to where they need to go, and then drop them off, and that's like the best part is just the car ride to daycare and school, just playing some music and talking with them.
Yeah.
So just counting the
So
little moments. So
the military family and readiness centers often use a dandelion to represent military children, and not because they're weeds, but because they will grow wherever they're planted, right? And military children do have to be the best representative of their parents because they have no choice. They're going where their parents are going, or they're staying when their parents are going. And I don't have a huge recollection of my dad's service, but I do remember living in base housing and dad being gone at work a lot and then that kind of thing. I know, Wendy, you were a military child, or I guess are, because you didn't get rid of that part of you. Military child. Do you have much recollection of having to change your life for your dad's service?
I don't. I mean, my time with my dad being in the military, I was very, very young. And so I don't remember like those kinds of things. I don't recall living like on base or like any of those kind of memories. My dad didn't retire in the military. So I do remember my mom's stories often of him being gone. She was pregnant with me while he was gone. I think she did a lot of the gosh, programs seem so much more advanced now than they were. I'm old, so like the older than all y'all on
She's
here.
older than
So
me.
yes. And so programs seem so much more substantive today. Like we've come a long way and it always seems like there's so much room for improvement. Um, and so she just had to do so much more on her own. Also, she was English second language, she had to do a lot by herself. And I imagine, like for Dustin, like that there's more of a sense of community now for people helping one another. Is that right? Or
you're talking like the military helping us serving and stuff within the like the base kind of parameters or community.
yeah.
I think definitely, I think every base we've moved to, the MFRC is awesome, and just the resources there. We're always met by like a school liaison whenever we sign the kids up for school. There's always some sort of orientation to try to introduce us to the child development centers on the base, which is immensely helpful to try to just feel welcome, and help our kids feel welcome. So that's incredible. And then, of course, there's just the great neighbors and friends that we're, living by that hey, can we list you as an emergency contact just in case we have to get the kids and stuff? So super fortunate. Wouldn't be here without the people we've come across.
What do
That's
you think? Like, sorry, Hope. But
no,
would
go
like
ahead.
your kids feel like, gosh, we've had to move and this and that, whatever, or do they find like that, like, oh, we get to make new friends, or what do you think? Like, what does that look like from their eyes?
Uh, so we were in Colorado. We moved to Herbert Field, and that was our last assignment. Now we're at Keesler Air Force Base. When we were at Herbert Field, our little guy was 2.5 when we moved there. So he was really young. He was really, really young. The first real move that he experienced was moving from Florida. And my in-laws, my wife's parents, actually live 45 minutes from the bases where we were at in Florida. So that was kind of tough. Just moving away from family, and then my brother-in-law, he's a Green Beret. He lives over on Eglin with his family and his girls. So just having a family support system there was incredible. So that was kind of tough, but he was excited to get here. And by day 2 that we moved into housing, playing with friends in the neighborhood and throwing baseballs and doing kid stuff. So just the resilience in kids is just something to leave you in awe for sure.
Yeah, and so when my son was looking at joining the military, and we were just having a little bit of difficulty getting him back in the service. That's a whole other story. One of the things that I would often try to impress upon my peers as we talked our way through other military children having difficulty joining the service is like these individuals get it. They get it. They've had to pick up and move. They've had to live the hard life. They've had to support the military parent. They understand the life. And so if they're then willing to extend the line by joining, why wouldn't we capitalize on that? Because this is not a life for everybody. And even though we as military members having had to choose this, our families didn't get the same choice. They kind of just came along for the ride either because they had to or because they loved us enough to do it.
So that propensity to serve is kind of already baked in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because people ask me all the time, like, what made Garrett join? And I'm like, I don't know. I from the time he was little, I would see him in his like Marines pajamas. It was the ones he would pick or ask his grandparents for. And then, over time, he wanted the small flight suit at clothing sales and all this and all this. And then when I deployed to Afghanistan, he got into the bomb squad Afghanistan. I think it was all covering EOD. And he really wanted to do something bigger. And he fell in love with the idea of being a part of that. Well, you can't just go right into EOD. You had to go in as something else. And so he's still considering that as an option, but it gave him the drive and motivation to be like, you know what, I want to do what my parents are doing. I want to have that touch to something bigger, which is what drove him to do it. But how did you break that to your son when it was time to leave Florida? Did you have to have a sit down, or were you just trying to give him the exciting news? Hey, 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 it's time to go.
I definitely think he was kind of bummed to leave his friends and just the natural kid stuff. We did try to explain to him that everywhere we go, we will have, a different calling and different seasons of life, as we go to different bases and live in different houses or communities. Kind of paired with the exciting stuff, meeting new friends, going and checking out the area and new food and all those sorts of things. I think definitely helped him. He's a brilliant kid, even being, 7 when we moved here. He's a brilliant kid and he asks big questions. So I think we just try to address whatever questions kind of came up because I've never lived and experienced things through his lens. So really tried to break it to him in just a transparent, honest way, and then just answer any questions he had as we kind of move forward.
So we love to say, not just we in the military, but we as people love to say children are resilient. They'll get over it, they'll grow. Like, do they though? Do they? I mean, is there always some recessed thing in the back that I had to leave friends or I had to change my community, like that kind of thing, Wendy? Do you have any thoughts? Because you said your dad didn't serve through to retirement. Did you guys move after he got out, or were you there to be there?
We did, I mean, we did move a handful of times as he different, like he's so somehow I just don't understand how I don't know things. So he was actually, we went through the nuclear power program in the Navy as well. And he went to work at nuclear power plants outside. So the fact that I went through the nuclear power program, I'm not sure how I didn't associate those things like until much later.
Yeah, yeah.
So he worked at a couple of different nuclear power plants on the civilian side, which caused us to move. And so I don't know that I mean, I feel like I was a pretty awkward kind of kid growing up, Um, I was kind of nerdy in like books and that's this and that and whatnot, like
You're still kind of.
well, yeah, I say was like it was past tense, right?
Like I feel like that's still kind of true.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the I think like I feel like and one of the reasons why I feel like I make great friendships today is because I feel like I learned pretty early on what good friendship might look like because um I kind of identified what like not great friendship looked like pretty early. So I think with the different moves, they kind of happened at some good timelines where they were at breaks in school. And then I had one friendship from like first grade where I still keep in touch with that person. Um, and then obviously from high school too. I mean, Tammy comes up in almost every podcast, but she put in a lot of the work as far as like sending all the notes and really keeping in touch and um, like literally sending me a message every single day to make sure that I am actually still breathing. So, I think that because of there was like those natural breaks in they almost seemed like good times to kind of move. And I think that looking at how thoughtful people try to be with moves, they try to make it at like a summertime or at a, holiday break. And, and even with high schools, people try to make it at a break where somebody doesn't have to graduate at a new school or things like that. Um, I think military families try, you know, um, and then when that doesn't work out, they try to make the most of it. I've seen families also split and be geo-separated, where like the Nolans, for example, they were geo-separated for their daughter to graduate in their high school while General Nolan went to be the A3 of the Air Force. And gosh, she was just so sad because they're such a great family unit. Um, and I remember Kristen saying, like, Bella, we could move to DC, which just the schools are just not the same. Here you are, you're like the class president, and you're in every kind of pick of something here. And we would have to live so far from DC, the commute time, just to have like an equivalent schooling experience for you. Um, the commute time for your dad would be like this, and then he'd be on the road 200 plus days a year. Like you wouldn't even really see him. So like it just being geo separated for you to graduate with your class here, like 1 year apart, it just seems to make more sense in this situation, and so because she was just so brokenhearted because they're such a close family, and she would be, like this just makes more sense in this particular scenario. And then we'll just travel back and forth on like holiday breaks and this and that and whatever, and so just to allow you to have like this great senior year experience. And
So, yeah, I
so
mean, sadly, that's true for a lot of families, even outside of the military. Like parents have to travel for work or parents have to relocate for work, and the kids get to just like it. Did you, Dustin, know you always wanted to have kids?
I did. I have a really close family. Like my mom raised my sister and I really close, and um, our cousins and stuff. And I always just wanted children. We always had great holidays and stuff. And it wasn't always easy. My parents split at an early age, but I do feel like, they found a new norm, and I think that they tried to invest in us and show us love in any way that they could, and we never went without. And I always wanted something of that kind of sense in my own life as I grew up. So my wife, she comes from a military family. Her dad grew up on the island of Puerto Rico, and then her mom as well. And then he was at E1 in the Army. He rose to the ranks after 30 years of CW5, and luckily, like she comes from a military family that has really, really helped us as a family unit adjust
Mm.
and provided a good example for our kids to see, like, hey, like some of these things might be challenging, but they're temporary. They're temporary. And also, we live in the technology age where we can FaceTime, where we're able to get on Xbox and play Xbox with our cousins and stuff. And I think that helps
And
ease the
keep your
woe
kids
and
connected to their
a
grandparents and that
hundred
kind of
percent.
thing. Yeah. So Wendy is one of the best that I know at maintaining a relationship long distance. Like she and I haven't been stationed anywhere near each other for decades. And same with Tammy. Like you have not lived in proximity of Tammy the whole time you've known her, save that little period of the Pentagon. But it's just one of those things that I think you have mastered really well. Do you accredit that to your time as a military child, learning how to like hold on to those relationships as you had to kind of leave the proximity of the person?
absolutely with the military and other people, like other examples that, like, okay, if you're going to stay connected, like you got to put in like that kind of effort, right? And so and people have reciprocated. Actually, her name just came up last night. Christina Mundy was somebody who was stationed at Cannon, and then again, maybe later. Anyhow, she somebody tagged me in a post on LinkedIn and said, "Can you help?" Just getting ready to transition out of the military. And I was like, "Oh, sure." She was the person on LinkedIn that I was connecting with a few other random people. So we just ended up chatting last night. And she was like, well, it'd be great if we like met on like and I was like, oh, I am definitely like FaceTime without warning person. I love a video chat, whatever. I was like, what comes up on our podcast all the time? She's like, oh, I love podcasts. What podcast? And she was like, I know this podcast.
Oh, that's
I was
fun.
like, you're the other person on the podcast.
You're the other guy.
So she was like, oh, it's my command chief.
Yeah, I love how small the military is. I love how
Yes.
small our connections are. It's almost like six steps to Kevin Bacon. You can
Yeah.
connect somebody to somebody else in that
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
short
Yeah.
frame. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things I love the most about what the military offered my kids. I mean, my son today is friends with people all over the globe that he built relationships with in different places. And now that he's in the military himself, there's a chance he'll get to see them again. But and I'm not a gamer. Sadly, like probably Zelda on Atari was the
It's a
last
classic.
game.
It's a classic.
What? Oregon Trail. Oregon Trail.
Yeah, but on Atari, right? Like back on the little joystick. It is my gaming experience, but my son has made friends and then retained friends through gaming even. Like
Awesome.
he found that connection and he's like, "Oh, mom, my friend Hawk from New Zealand," I think he
Yeah.
says. And I'm like, "You've been talking about that kid since you were 12? Like you're still friends?" He's like, "Oh yeah." I just love that. I love that our children have to find a way to do a thing that we would have lost out on when we moved. You know what I mean? We'd have lost unless you were Wendy writing letters and things.
The most thoughtful person every holiday. Wendy reaches out and says, "Hey, what's your address?" And like seriously, the most thoughtful person. So thank you for
Yeah.
always thinking of other people.
Yeah, my inner military child is thankful for the friend in you, Wendy. Thank you. But
The
no, I just want
wait,
to
I
ask
just
you one
want
more time, Wendy, because
yes.
your mom was a product of your dad's military experience, right? Like he met her when stationed overseas.
There's like a longer story involved in that, and so I'm gonna let her share that story.
No secrets here. But no, just saying, like, because then she too, though not a military child, would have had to try to maintain those long distance relationships. Do you think that too contributes to your like strength in that
Oh gosh.
scenario?
Well, I mean, certainly I mean, when you talk about Asian families, the taking care of the mother is like 100% like baked into our lineage, right? And so in fact, she's actually traveling overseas later this year. And so there's like a whole plan of how like we're gonna take care of the whole family. And so I'm pretty sure, funding a village in Vietnam right now. So this comes up on my security clearance every year. Wait, this is one of my favorite stories when the investigators in my office and like who's this person and that person and whatever. And so like somehow I'd gotten confused with the first name and the last name because it's never really clear to me. And so I'm like, oh, let me find out. So I call my mother and it's written PHI. And so I was like, who's Fee? And she's like, who? And this is on speaker with the investigator. I said, who is Fee? And so she's like, who? And I'm like, oh my God, like this person I've been sending thousands of dollars to, who is Fee? I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, Fee, this person. Oh, Fee, your uncle, Fee? And I'm thinking like,
What was I saying? What
how is it
was I
different than what I said?
saying?
Like literally, I hear no difference. So, no, you said B, and I'm like,
Yeah. Oh,
thanks,
I
mom.
love it.
So anyhow, I want to understand like as our things have gotten better because I was just up on Capitol Hill and I was talking about some things that we need to improve. And so right now there are a lot of things that are rolling out that have been a little bit like there's been some challenges that are coming down the pike. And so one of the things that I talked about was our CDCs. And so hey, there's like these changes and these funding cuts and things like that. And we're struggling in the CDCs and childcare and that kind of stuff. And so, like, what are some things that might be helpful for somebody listening in of like, hey, like this is like a reality of the situation, and here's what we're doing to take care of it. Like, Dustin, are you largely familiar with this at all? Or because these are things that this is what I brought to Capitol Hill.
I I know that childcare has been a big thing that Chief Bass and the SEAC and a lot of the service SELs have spoke on to Capitol Hill. I'm not sure what the current initiatives are, But I do think that there's definitely some unique ways you could probably help solve some of the childcare concerns. Maybe like a shred out of a child care development specialist or something. Maybe a military member who's interested in that sort of thing, because I think people do like to pursue that as a career, and that's like
This isn't
totally
like you haven't
up
had an
to
experience, or this isn't affecting you guys right now, or you're not seeing this like happen for your locations then?
we have been pretty fortunate, been able to get into childcare here, but we do have some of our members PCSing in and then other units talking to the First Sergeant Council on the base who do experience childcare concerns, either capacity with caregivers, with not having enough caregivers for students, or just not having the capacity to bring children in. And then the challenge in local communities is that a lot of the caregivers will go off base because they'll earn more money, or their capacities for children will be higher than they are on base. A balance of something that they try to navigate, and naturally people leave the CDC, the employment of the CDC a lot to make more money.
So,
It's
we're running short on time, but I want to offer a thought here, and it's just a perspective. Don't feel anything specific. But if you look at the number of military members on an installation and compare that to the number of children that are in, those military families, less than 10% actually get served at a CDC, which means the other 90% are having to seek childcare somewhere else.
Gotcha.
And so the Hope Skibitsky opinion, though no one is asking me, is if those things dissipated and went away, those 10% would have to find the same coverage that the
Right.
90% is already finding. The
Definitely.
difference is that the CDC often offers hours open when the holiday is closed and people are working, or early opening when there's an exercise because people get called in. But again, they're still only serving the 10%. The other 90% of families that have that same exercise and have that same requirement are still having to solve the problem. And so if the government had to focus its attention somewhere else, I think it's a very real possibility that we'd figure it out, right?
Right.
Because
Right. Right.
a bigger
it's a
portion of the
necessity and it would have
population
to
is
happen.
doing that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, it's only 10%, and that's an unpopular opinion because everybody's like, oh, we need more CDCs. And that's only because we want to pay the less in childcare.
Right.
But Dustin just made the point. Like, many of the CDC providers are like, I could make more money doing this somewhere
Right.
else,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so they're ditching and bailing. And so when we have less providers, we still even have less open spots for kids. And so then less than that 10% are being cared for at the CDC. So again, if that thing dissipated and went away and we focused our attention somewhere else, we as military members would adjust. We'd figure it out, right?
Definitely. Definitely. And I honestly, I wasn't, I don't think I'm purview to like the demographics, the percentages and stuff like that. So that's good. That's great perspective.
Yeah,
But I definitely think, resiliency with children and just families, military families, we would absolutely figure it out. We
that's
get
right.
creative every single move to try to figure things out. So,
We
can't
figure it
underestimate.
out. We
That's right.
figure it
That's
out.
right.
And our kids figure it out. And our families figure it
100%.
out. And that is the power of just being the flexible movers, shakers, doers that we are.
I can tell you
100%.
this is one thing that I want to squeeze in really quickly is that the number of people that I meet that have never left their hometown or their state or whatnot. One thing that I just so appreciate about military lifestyle in general is the worldview that it offers. And when I think about the exposure that military families have, um, just that global view that you get, what the cultural view that you get from living in different places can shape how you see the world and how you live your life. And so I so love that our, military kids can grow up in a lifestyle that offers them such great perspective. And so as they grow, they can think about things very differently. And so I don't think that that is something that you know, deliberately think about like when you're growing up, but like it's that exposure that you
That's
you
right.
suddenly have shaped your thoughts differently. Very different than, I mean, I grew up in a small town, and so it's not like I had exposure to thinking about things wildly differently,
Oh, I had 36 people in my graduating class. I know small town.
That's right.
right?
That's right.
All
So,
right. Well, we could chat about this all day, and obviously, I am so glad to have gotten to spend the time with you guys. But we are at the end, and I look forward to getting back together. Dustin, I appreciate you having spent this time with us.
Thank you for having me.
next time, I expect your wife to come in and start serenading us because I recall a
Oh,
certain conversation where we were in the middle of chatting, and then all of a sudden it sounded like she flung open the door and sounded like, a musical.
I want
Absolutely.
to hear
Absolutely. We can bring
that.
her on 100%.
And I was like, she is wild.
She's the best. She's the best. She's my better half, 100%.
I love that. Well, everybody, as always, if there's something you want to hear us talk about, if you want to talk about the thing we talked about, if you want to talk about anything else, you can always find us, orangegumpodcast.com. You can reach out to us at orangegumpodcast@gmail.com. You can catch our videos on YouTube and you can listen wherever you listen. And so we'll
Hi,
see you next
everybody.
time. Take care, y'all.